Okay, we'll just start slowly while others come in. Thanks everyone for being here. We have lots of session planned this year. So the idea of these sessions is always meant to be peer-to-peer discussions of those going through the same journey. And before I introduce you to our lovely speaker, Maria Luisa, I will just share a bit about myself as well as the what Ahead is and what do we do. So we started Ahead with a mission to support those going through career changes. The idea is that we can always reach our potential no matter what life stage we are at, whenever we also need a bit more flexibility when it comes to family support. And then since the last few years, we are doing it also with a team of individuals, very passionate about the mission as well. My name is Carolina, and I'm from Singapore originally, now based in Frankfurt. And the idea is also to make use of my previous experience in global talent management, helping senior leaders with understanding how when they are working with an organization, and now I want to use this skill set also for Ahead. So feel free to reach out and connect. I'll put my LinkedIn now. Also feel free to connect to those in the group, because the idea is not just to have one session, but to have this continuous interaction so that we can exchange and learn from each other. So this session is an important one. So we do once every month. Today, the discussion is about work-life harmony. And how do we then build in the design of our work and our life and ensure that we always have, the right energy and our energy tank is always full, which sometimes is hard juggling different things. How do we also discuss with the stakeholders that to make this happen? And Maria Luisa is going to give us some really, really good tips today. Before that, let me also connect you with some of the other members and introduce them a bit. So we're not doing this, alone. We have also Brita, who is here, Priyanka, who's here, Eugenio, the US, so you can't join, and Paula as well. So we each have different hats that we play to make it happen and continue the support. And also we have this global network of coaches, trainers, some of them that we mentioned. Maria Luisa is one of them as well. And the idea of Ahead is also to lead you and connect you or match you with a group of coaches and trainers that support your individual needs. And as well, more than that, we have the support from mentors from different parts of the world, mainly in Asia and Europe, in Germany especially. And we also work with corporate partners that are usually from this core sectors such as technology, pharma, also from the beauty industry, as well as also banking, finance. So part of what we do is to look into visual at a career change, whether is it really in a career or whether is it thinking about transition. So we also build a 10 steps guide. So these are some of the 10 steps, and the work-life harmony part, as you see, is step number 2. That's why we're here today. So we have also a guide. This guide can be downloaded. So those who are interested can send you a link also to download it. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, so some of these dates would include the next one in March coming up after this. In April, we have also Create Your Personal Brand. In May, we have about the CV LinkedIn. In June, then we have our global forum where we try to bring everyone again together, including also corporate partners that we partner with. So I meant for it to be short, but I'd like to then invite Maria Luisa to also introduce herself. But Maria Luisa has been supporting us since we started the concept of Ahead. She's seen us grow, we've seen her grow, and also continue to expand her diverse projects that she works on. She's a neuroscience-based trainer. She's also a coach. and she is a fantastic artist. And she is one of the best person who really knows how to look into this work-life harmony, because she also takes extremely care of herself and manages her structures of work life very well. So I'm very happy to introduce her. And then Maria Luisa, I'll let you then take the stage, the virtual stage. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you to everybody. And thank you for dedicating some time to this very important topic. I will proceed to share my screen, and we will start with today's session, which is called Neuroscience of Resilience for Better Work-Life Harmony. And the purpose of the next 50 minutes, I think, will be to give you some maybe new knowledge about how your brain and body work together, and also give you some practical advices, and maybe refreshing some of the things that you already know. It will be an interactive session. We'll have some questions, some reflection questions you will be able to share in the chat. And please, any question you have in between, write it in the chat. However, I will make space for your questions in between. I will show you first the agenda for today. I have divided the workshop into 5 parts. We will start by defining and understanding what do we understand by work-life harmony and resilience. Then we'll talk about the biology and neuroscience of resilience. We will talk about one very important aspect, which is emotion regulation. What strategies do work and which ones do not work. Another very important point is the sleep and work in relation with work-life harmony. And then we finalize with some practical suggestions. And I will show you one way how you can learn more if you're interested. Okay, then let's begin with the first part, work-life harmony and resilience. And what do we mean when we talk about work-life harmony? Work-life harmony, one definition is to the balance between the time and the energy you dedicate to work and everything else in your life. So, and we try to find a balance so that when we work too much, what happens? We don't have energy for the rest. What are the signs that show us that we don't have an adequate work-life balance? And sometimes, and maybe you have experienced some of those. When we don't have that balance, we tend to overreact to people, to situations. We make communication mistakes, we misunderstand, we make other mistakes, cognition mistakes. We feel insecure, we may not sleep very well because we're worrying, we're ruminating problems. In the long term, we can develop health conditions and many more. This is not an exhaustive list. Just take a look to this for a moment and think about what is one area or situation right now in your life where you would like to be more balanced. And if you want, you can write it down. And you can, of course, share in the chat if you feel like. Work and time with kids. Excellent. And I know many of you have kids, and this is a major drain of time. No time for sport and health. Thank you, Daria. This is just for you, just to become aware which one is the area that you can recall first, because this is the one when you need it most. What are the factors that promote work-life harmony? This is just a refresher. You know this already, but it's not bad to refresh it, because what we know, it doesn't mean that we are practicing it. Physical activity, we all know it's good for us because it releases endorphins, makes us feel happy, and it's good for brain function. Another one is healthy food. We all know this. We're educated. However, how many times do we fail to do it? A very important one, and I will have a dedicated chapter to this, is restorative sleep, good quality sleep. Time for yourself. This is the one where we cut off more easily. Are we able to plan and schedule time for ourselves with no obligations, hobbies, reflection time, healthy relationships, family, friends, and last but not least, emotion regulation? All these factors, if done adequately, promote work-life harmony. So just keep them in mind. Let's explore a little bit further. Now I would like you to think about yourself a little bit different than you usually do. Think about yourself as an energy system, like a battery. We are using and we are renewing energy all the time. Most of us have more energy in the morning than in the evening. Now, think about it. What happens when you don't charge your mobile device at night? You forget to charge. How is the battery level on the next morning? It's very low, so you're not able to operate the same way. With us, it's a little bit similar. And the level of energy influences your ability to create an adequate work-life balance. So what is resilience? Because resilience is also connected to this energy. The more energy you have, the more you can train that resilience capacity. There are many definitions of resilience, and this is one of them. It's the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. It has to do with flexibility to the changes in your environment. The more flexible you are, the more energy efficient you are, the more you can have that adequate work-life balance. That's why let's talk about resilience, and let's talk about different domains of resilience or different domains of energy. And we can talk about 4 domains of energy. As you can see, everything is related with each other: energy, resilience, work-life. We can talk about 4 main domains. The first one is the physical one. It refers to endurance, strength, health. The second one is emotional, the ability to remain positive in the face of adversity or challenges, and the ability to self-regulate in the moment when you need it. Then we have the spiritual domain, nothing to do with religion. It's more about, is your thinking, acting, and feeling coherent? Is this aligned? Or are you acting in a different way than you are thinking and feeling? Because if you're doing this, then you're consuming much more energy than if you're being coherent. So it's about inner integrity. It's about also tolerance for other people's values and beliefs. And the last one is mental. Ability to focus, attention span, ability to connect different informations. All 4 domains, they influence each other, they relate each other. For example, imagine you are going to go to an interview presentation. You're going to apply for a job, you're got invited to a presentation. And just the morning, half an hour before you leave the house, you have a big argument with your partner. This is influencing your emotional state when you are in a presentation. Is this influencing the ability to focus and give the right answers in your presentation, in your interview? Yes or no? Of course. So you see, all 4 domains are correlated. In this workshop today, I'm going to focus especially on the emotional and mental domain. Why? Because it is in the emotional domain where we tend to lose a lot of energy unnecessarily. So let's try to see, where are we losing energy? when we shouldn't be losing energy, especially when we feel bad about things that we cannot change. So, any questions so far? Please feel free anytime, any comment to write it in the chat. Let's go to the next subchapter, what is the biology and neuroscience of resilience. This is a little bit more neuroscience, not too much. I keep it simple so that you understand. There is one fundamental principle in neuroscience. It was Evian Gordon, he's a neuroscientist, and it's called our behavior is conditioned to minimize threat and maximize reward. There are two fundamental, it's a duality of behavior. So we are programmed to avoid threat and to repeat, to seek for reward. This is what motivates us. This is how we engage. Now, in modern societies, what we observe is that there is an overactivation of the threat or stress response. And there are mainly two reasons for that. Just to become aware that we are permanently in a threat state. So the reason number one is that we live in a era of distractions. There are permanently distractions. We sleep with our mobile device. This is our partner. It's not the husband or wife. It's the mobile device. So we are permanently available. There is a lot of information incoming. Our brain is designed to respond to novelty. Our brain needs to scan the environment to see if there is something new, to compare with the information that the brain already knows, and to classify in dangerous or not dangerous. That's how we operate. That's why we don't want to miss anything. Now, this is one major source of stress for most people. The problem is we get used to that so that we don't perceive this as a stress anymore. And there's a constant drain of energy there. What are some of the things in our environment that trigger our stress response? Here you can see some of them. There are not all of them. We call it external stressors because they're outside of yourself. And maybe you can check if you can identify with one or two on this list. And if not, you can write the one that you feel you're triggered most right now. Give you a couple of seconds to reflect. Please share in the chat if you feel like. The motivation we have here from Daria. Thank you. Just reflect on what is the one trigger number one? Heavy workload, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Heavy workload and finances. Thank you, Caroline. So these are external factors. But we, as a human being, there is a second reason for the overactivation of the stress response. And the source of this second factor is the human brain. We have a fantastic, high developed brain, which is able to imagine future possibilities, is able to imagine worst case scenarios. So for the brain, there is no difference if we are having a real threat represented by this lion, or if we are just thinking about our boss. We know he's a little bit special, and we know we're late with some report and he's expecting from us. So we're just thinking about how he will feel. Both the real threat and the imaginary threat, they create in our brain and body exactly the same stress response. We don't know, our body and our brain, they don't know the difference between something we are imagining or a real threat. This is how we think. Now I'm going to show you how this works in an example. According to a study published in Psychology Today, 70% of people's thoughts are negative. We are much more designed for negativity than for positivity. There is an evolutionary reason behind that, because we need to preserve the species. So that means if 70% of people's thoughts are negative, imagine how much stress we are creating just by those 70% negative thoughts. And let's see one example. Now we have this guy, his name is Peter, and he has some of the 70% negative thoughts. For example, I'm not appreciated, or I have one meeting after another, or I'm overworked, or I don't have a minute to myself, or we're late with this project. When we have, and we all have similar thoughts, so one comes after the other, when we have a series of thoughts that are firing and wiring in tandem and synchronized, because this is what thoughts are exchanges in electrical impulses in the brain, then there are certain chemicals that are released in your brain. And there are three types of chemicals. You may have heard about them: neurotransmitters, neuropeptides, and hormones. Now, what this guy is really thinking is, I'm frustrated. When we have those chemicals being produced in the brain, there's some part of those chemicals and neuropeptides travel down the spinal cord. In this case, they reach the adrenal glands. There is an adrenaline release. And this is the moment when you start feeling frustrated. This is the moment when you feel a change in your chemistry in the body. And in that moment, immediately, there is another message from the body up to the brain. And you start thinking about the way you feel. So you start generating more corresponding thoughts. I am surrounded by idiots, or I can't stand my partner, or I should quit my job, or I should move to a lonely island. These are not really real thoughts. This is the weird thing. You're inventing them, but they match exactly the way you feel. What a stupid person. He must be very frustrated. He must be sick. So we start inventing those thoughts. But there is a continuity between thought and feeling. So we create a thinking and feeling loop. So thoughts influence feelings, feelings, thoughts, and so on. And we can perpetrate that loop for many years. Thank you, Caroline. Many years. Sometimes people are doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, and they get used to that. And this is consuming a lot of energy all the time, especially if we continue cultivating that negative thoughts. Now I just would like to go a little bit more into the topic of emotions. And let's continue thinking about those negative emotions that we feel more frequently. And here you have some of them. We have many negative emotions. We have much more negative emotions than positive ones. So here you have some samples of emotions, and every emotion you experience is impacting the way your heart beats on a beat-to-beat base. It's changing the heartbeat pattern. But every emotion, it's affecting your heart in a different way. It's like every emotion has a different chemical signature in your body. Now, the difference is that these kind of emotions are creating some chemicals that tell your body to use energy, to consume energy. And that's why when you are activating those emotions, because you're worrying about things that you cannot change, you're using energy unnecessarily. And this is what I say here. They release the stress hormones and deplete your energy. I'm not saying that you never have to feel frustrated or angry, but just do it for the right things. Now, we know that the chemicals of stress in the long term, they can make us sick. Why? Because we have a high heart rate. We don't breathe deep enough. We breathe faster. all energy gets mobilized to the muscles and extremities. We're ready for run, fight, or flight. We know all this. What is less known is the effects of those emotions in brain performance. The heart and the brain, they are more connected than any other organ in the body. From all the information between the heart and the brain, about 70% goes up from the heart to the brain, not the otherwise. So if there's a signal going from the heart to the brain with this information about the negative emotions, incoherence in the heart means negative emotions are spending a lot of energy. They create a lot of incoherence in the brain, especially in one part of the brain, which is called the frontal lobe. Is this one here, right behind your forehead. This is also called the CEO of the brain. Why? Because he's the boss. Because he's in charge of all these very important functions. Memory, emotion regulation, impulse control. Goal setting, it's the one that imagines, thinks and possibilities, decision-making, problem-solving, creativity. Now, what is the problem with that negative emotions, especially the explosive ones? This area of the brain is the first one that goes offline. I'm going to show you how. Can you recall a situation that you experienced recently with a co-worker, with a boss, with your partner, or your children, where they did something that upset you, that triggered you, and you reacted to that? You wrote something, you said something, you did something, and the same day in the afternoon or evening, or even the day after, you just say to yourself, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have written that email. You regret it. How many people had this experience? Just raise your hand if you want. Okay. So we all have had that experiences. And how many of you have had that experience with the same person about the same issue? Yeah. So you see, and this shows very clearly how when we are having that emotions, we are really incoherent in the brain. These functions are deactivated. Now, in our life, in our business world, and working also at home with our kids, with our families, we need to have those activated the most part of the time. So we need to act first to change that emotion, because it's the emotion that creates that incoherence in the brain. Just to become aware a little bit how this is affecting us. Now, work life does also have to do with optimal performance. And I want just to remind you how the behavior between challenge in time, this is time, and this is here challenge, sustained challenge. How does it relate to performance? And I'm talking about performance in any area of your life: physical performance, cognitive performance, ability to focus. So just to review this curve, and you have maybe seen similar representations. Imagine you starting a new job and you're very enthusiastic, you're really motivated, you're at the beginning, so you're really engaged, and we see here increasing performance. Then there is a point of peak performance, maximal performance. It's called eustress. You experience that kind of stress that it's really good, that it's engaging. Beyond that point, if you continue in time with the same level of challenge, of work demands, if you don't have an adequate energy management, the performance begins to drop. You start making mistakes, you misunderstand people, you may feel tired. And we continue, of course, with that level of challenge. I don't call it challenge, I just stress, I call it challenge in time. Then we have a rapid exhaustion and ultimately breakdown and burnout. That's why it's so important to have some energy management tools. For example, with some resilience tools, you're able to change the shape of this performance curve to spend more time in the peak performance zone. and to decelerate the breakdown and burnout. Of course, there is a limit of what we can do, and there is no resilience tool that can avoid breakdown and burnout if you sustain high challenge over a very long period of time. But just to know that there are ways how you can manage your energy intelligently. So how many people are following me so far? Any questions? Let's go to the next subchapter, which is what are some effective emotion regulation strategies? And just recall what you just wrote down about your stressor number one. And just honestly answer for yourself, how do you typically handle that situation when it happens? You can share your strategy in the chat if you want. You go for a walk. Breathe into pilot, so very good. Regain peace, reflect. These are very good ways. Sports, nature, meditation, listening to music. Thank you so much. These are good. I'm going to share with you some common strategies that people do, but only because they are common, it doesn't mean that they work very well. So some of the things that people do is many people, especially in business context or in relationships, they wait. They don't do anything special. They don't process the emotions. Just wait until it's over. Okay, Caroline, I will answer that question after this chapter. So wait is one very common emotion regulation strategy. Another one is distraction, means do something else. Watch a movie, Netflix, do some sport, play some game in your mobile device. And then we have another one, which is suppress, which is very common in business settings because we are not allowed to express that emotion. We don't have the time. And we are afraid of the consequences. So many times we suppress. And the problem with suppression is we even sometimes don't acknowledge that we have the emotion. So we don't recognize that we have the emotion that we don't admit. Now, all these three, they take very long time until they work or they don't work at all. And that's why I want to bring some awareness that many times we're doing them subconsciously. So waiting takes a long time. Distraction only works as long as you're distracted because you feel different. And suppression is counterproductive because you're even wasting more energy in trying to eliminate that emotion that you're experiencing. So what I recommend is, especially with suppression, if you cannot regulate in the moment because you have no time, because it's not appropriate, do it as soon as possible. Take a break, go for a walk in the lunch break, or when you're at home, try to regulate there. What are some common effective strategies? What are some things that research has proven that they really work? And there are two groups. One of them, I see many of you are doing this already. So the one that the scientific community says is very effective is reappraisal. Reappraisal means really to change the emotion, not just to think about the emotion and thinking positive. It's about really feeling differently. So detach from the emotion and shift your state to a more positive one. Involves cognitive control. And one of the tools that you can apply are coherence tools that change exactly that, the way the heart is being impacted. And the other ones are mindfulness. Mindfulness is a fantastic way to become aware of that emotion and also to change that emotion. And there are many ways how you can do this. But the point is, you really have to change that emotion. There has to have a physiological shift in your body. Thinking positively is not enough. It's a good first step. Both help you to shift that emotional state. I'm going to show you one study that shows how this works. And in this study, the participants, there were 3 groups, they were asked to see videos of nasty surgical procedures. So there were 3 groups. The one group were asked to reappraise the emotions of disgust they were experiencing. So they had to shift to a more positive state. They knew how to do this. They were trained. The second group, they were asked to suppress that emotion. So that's why I make it here. They are really thinking, right? They don't feel very, very good. And the third group was the control group. They were doing absolutely nothing. They were just feeling disgust. So they were measuring brain waves. They were measuring some physiological measures like skin conductance. They were measuring the heartbeats. What I saw is both repressal and suppression. They were not expressing the emotion. They were not expressing disgust. The second, what they were measured was the feeling, so skin conductance. They saw that it was only decrease in the reappraisal group. And the most interesting one was that the brain affective system, so the activation on the emotional system of the brain, which is the amygdala, which is the one that gets highly activated in the stress response. They were only decreased, was only decreased in the reappraisal, but it was increased in the suppression. Just the one that really signals the body to use energy. And that's how you see how ineffective this strategy is. So it's really the very best strategy to the reappraisal. So that's hope it's information that helps you to become more aware when you're doing this and to shift as soon as possible to a more emotional state. So we have here a question about how can we break the cycle of constant stress if we're unable to change the situation environment. Thank you. Yeah, the first thing is, of course, become aware of if you cannot really change the situation, you always can change the way you process the situation. Become aware how the situation is affecting you. And then try to find an emotion, a positive emotion that you can easily connect with. You can help yourself by activating memories of the past, of situations that you have already experienced, because every memory that you have, there is an emotion attached to that. So when you remember pleasant experiences, immediately you activate emotion. And try to spend some time with that. And sometimes 3 to 5 minutes, it's enough. And there you can change it. At least you can stop the energy drain of that emotion. And it's a practice, it's a training. The more you do it, the more skilled you get at it. Hope this answers. Okay, let's continue with the next chapter, which is the neuroscience of sleep. And I want to talk about the sleep because sleep, restorative sleep, is the major source of energy that we have. It's not food, it's not healthy relationships, it's really sleep. And many people are not aware of that. And it's where we tend to cut hours when we are very busy. So let's talk a little bit more about this. A question to you. How many of you wake up tired after sleeping? Caroline, raise the hands. Thank you so much. I think we all have experienced this many times. And just let's take a look to some facts. How many years of our average life do you think we spend sleeping? Just guess. Any idea? Yeah, 20 years, I see, 30%. We sleep about 4 months every year. It means 32 years of a 90-year life. There is a biological reason for that, and nature is very wise, and we are being designed to sleep that much. Sleep is a fundamental biological need. Sleep is like, we need sleep like water and like food, even more than that. You really cannot die because of lack of sleep. You can die because of the health consequences of a long-term lack of sleep. But if you don't sleep for 1 day, your body takes this sleep. We have experienced micro sleeps. Sometimes you listen, there was an accident because a truck driver were sleeping while driving. The body takes that micro sleeps, so you really cannot die because of that. And this is a really very basic need. And we know what happens when we just don't sleep by 1 night. These are some of the things that happen when we don't sleep. For example, we're more reactive. We're not tolerant with people. We don't empathize with people. We're not patient. We cannot remember things. Of course, we don't listen to people. It worsens communication. We're more reactive to stress. What happens with eating habits? We compensate with chocolate. We are not able to learn that good. A very important point, we are less risk averse. And we're unable to focus. These are some of the things that we all have experienced, especially when I remember when my children were little and I had little sleep. It was challenging for me to focus at work. Let's talk a little bit about the architecture of sleep. And you may have heard about the sleep cycle and the stages of sleep. So your brain, when you're sleeping, it's not like a black box, and we really don't know what is going on there, but there is a lot going on there. And I'm going to just explain you a little bit about what happens in 1 night of sleep. This is 8 hours. And the brain doesn't have the same activity during the night. It changes. And we can talk about 5 stages of sleep. And we know about these stages because you can measure the brain waves during each stage. And we can measure it and we can reflect it with what is called hypnograph. Now, when you start and it's the night and you fall asleep, you fall from the waking state, which is associated with a fast, rapid brainwave pattern. It's called beta brainwave pattern. So you fall directly in the stage 1. It's a little bit slower. In stage 1, you're still moving. You can easily wake up. You go to the next one, which is a little bit deeper. Stage 2 is a transition state. Then you go to stage 3, which is a little bit deeper. And then you go to a deep sleep, which is a very low brainwave state. You cannot easily wake up in this state. You're not moving. Your muscles are paralyzed. Now, what happens in all of these stages in your brain? One of the things that happens in stage 2 is there is a replay effect. What do I mean by that? If you are learning something new, some new skill, let's take, you are, for example, learning how to drive. What happens is there is like a movie that is being shown in your brain in this stage. So you're like replaying the movements you have to do. So the next stage, with your next lesson, your body and your brain, they have already assimilated that knowledge. So this is why it's so important really to sleep well, because you process that emotion and memories. And in the deeper sleep stages, there is important functions of memory consolidation and a really essential one, which is tissue and organ repair. We release a growth hormone, and it's the one that tells the cells to regenerate and to repair. And if you take a look to this, the deep sleep stage happens in the first half of the night. Means there is a evolutionary priority to recover this kind of sleep first. If you have not enough hours, you're going to have this deep sleep first. Now, when we're in deep sleep, then we go up and we go up to the REM stage. The process of going down to the deep stages and going up to the REM stages is called a full sleep cycle. It takes about 90 minutes. Now, what happens in the REM stage? This is the stage where we dream. We may move in the dreams, but not that much. It's a fast brainwave stage. And we have very important functions happening here. Emotion regulation happens in this stage. Means what we experience during the day, and after that discussion with a colleague, we regulate that emotion. So we are able to see the situation without the emotional charge. This is the stage when we are really creative. We generate ideas. Sometimes we wake up from dreams and we have the next step for a project or for something when we get stuck. So it's really essential for problem solving and creativity. If you see, the longer we sleep, the longer we spend time in the REM stages. And maybe you have had this on the weekends when you can sleep longer, that you can remember more easily your dreams. You wake up and you can recall your dreams. This is because we spend more time the more you sleep. So that's why we need, for a good restorative sleep, at least 4 to 5 full sleep cycles every night. So I'm going to show you a very interesting study between sleep deprivation and emotion regulation. In this study, there were 2 groups. One group could sleep one night, in the night. The other group was not allowed to sleep. Before they went to sleep, they were shown pictures, images, photos evoking positive, negative, or neutral emotions. Positive, for example, a beautiful sunset, some flowers. The negative were like a snake or a crying baby or somebody in pain. And neutral emotions, a chair, a desk, a building. The next morning, they were asked to remember as much as possible of the images. Now, what happens was that, and they were measuring, of course, brainwave activity and they were doing brain scans that at the time they were remembering. And this graph corresponds to the negative images. So on the top, you see the sleep control group. So the one that were allowed to sleep. And the second, you see the sleep deprivation group. So that was when they were remembering the negative images. What you see here is that the sleep control could remember without activation of the amygdala, the emotional center. But the sleep deprivation, they were exactly triggered the same way as the first time. So they were totally in stress with an activation of the amygdala, high activation. So that was one major finding, that they were not able to regulate because they were not sleeping. But there was another one, which is even more alarming, which is that the sleep deprivation group, they could only remember negative information. They could not remember, they had almost no memories for the positive images or the neutral images. So, and this is very alarming because it stresses again that the importance of emotion regulation. So I think we have some questions here. Let me just check. From Isabel. Is the brain adapting if you have kids who wake up at night and you have to take care about? them? If not, what can you do in order to improve the sleep? Yes, if you can do, there is also a lot of research about naps. So you can take a nap. 20 minutes nap is already good enough to recover some part of the sleep. And maybe you can reserve some slots in your day. I can provide also some research on that. Best thing is you take a nap, which is a full cycle nap, because you have then all the benefits of all the stages, probably only possible on the weekend. So this is something, and that would be my advice. Try to recover with naps. And of course, the best thing is that you can take 90 minutes. And I think we have another one from Carolina, adding to your question. This is damage permanent with long time sleep deficiency, or can we recover from it with some strategies? I really don't have a research study that shows if this damage is irreversible. I think there is some damage if you have a chronic sleep deficit, but what I have seen in my experience is that you can completely recover, but it takes time, because you just have to train yourself to recover that. Now, let's move to some practical suggestions. What can we do to, yeah, exactly, Britta, lack of sleep triggers negative emotions. Yeah, exactly. It's just that we don't regulate, we don't have the emotion regulation that happens during sleep. So the next time you're exposed to the same trigger, you have the same emotional response with the same intensity. What are some things we can do immediately to have a more adequate work-life balance? And here are some things that you can do at home. At home, you can recharge your battery more easily than at work. Sleep, first one. Some physical activity. We'll talk about relationships. Cultivate relationships. Go out with friends. Pursue your hobbies. Plan time, really schedule time for those things, and have some time in reflection time. Even if you have little time and there are many things you have to do, having some 5 minutes or 10 minutes at the end of the day just to ask yourself, how did I do today? What was triggering me? What could have I done differently? It's already training you to make some changes the next time the same situation happens. What can you do at work? What can you do when you have no time? Back-to-back meetings, plan breaks between meetings. There is a recent study done with Microsoft workers that compared the brains of people that had back-to-back meetings with people that have 5 minutes between breaks. And they show after the third meeting, in the brain of people with no breaks, really high beta activation, which is associated with high levels of stress. The ones with breaks, they had almost a much lower brainwave frequency. So 5 minutes really make the difference. Schedule breaks if you can to between your meetings. Another thing, preventive about talking about work problems at lunchtime. Talk about nice things. Try to change the conversation to another things. It's also good for your creativity. Do 2-3 minute self-checks in your day-to-day. How are you feeling right now? What can you do to change that state? This is how you train resilience. Regulate negative emotions as soon as possible. So if you have something really big on one day, don't wait until the night, because it's going to compromise the quality of your sleep. The longer you keep that emotions, the longer you're ruminating. So you are activating that thinking and feeling loop we were talking about before. So it's important that you recognize and you act on that. And my favorite is list 2-3 personal achievements of the day. We're just always thinking on the to-dos and what do I need to do tomorrow on my list, and we always forget to write down what did I achieve today. And there are always some things you can list, and it changes your emotional state. it helps you to develop gratitude also for those things. So these are some of my practical advices, and I think, is there any other questions so far? Because we're almost done. No, I don't see any other question. Now, for those of you that are interested in learning some practical resilience tools, coherence tools that help you really to act on your physiology, I am certified HeartMath resilience trainer. These are research-based tools that are first implemented by first responders, police, healthcare personnel, because these are the ones that have to really take the right decision in critical situations. And they have really very easy to apply tools. They take only 3 to 5 minutes that you can learn to apply in the moment when you need them. So for the ones that are interested, I offer these programs regularly as an open programs for everybody. And the next one is on March 21st, 22nd. It's the 6th program. We have 2 sessions of 2 hours, and then I have 4 individual coaching sessions with everybody. So you can scan the code here, and I don't know, maybe we can provide a link later, Caroline. And you get a 15% discount if you want until February 28th. So, and I will stay here for questions if anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much, Maria Luisa. That was very interesting, also with all the scientific insights that we sometimes don't think about, of how certain lifestyle or disruptions can impact health in a biological way. And we always, at least myself personally, underestimate it. And now we can use some of the tools, and definitely for those who are looking to go in depth and get some more strategies, etc., definitely recommend looking into some of the next sessions. Before going to the questions, maybe I can also share the screen for those who are looking into career relaunching. We also have a few packages that, if you like, for those who are part of the sessions, we also have special promotional rates. So just feel free to email us. It's not a QR code. We will make one the next time, but feel free to send an email to us as well. For some reason, I can't put the slideshow. Just a second. Oh, stop share. Let me try again. Can see the application. Zoom is, yeah, now it goes. So we also provide coachings of both work and life, as well as career relaunch package. So those many of the members here are looking at career transitions, some moving to a new country, some planning to come back to work after parental leave. So these are some of the packages from our network of coaches. Many of them are either experienced HR professionals or certified coaches or executive search experienced coaches as well that can support. And feel free to also leverage then this discount as part of also being part of this event. Okay, so any questions so far from the group? So Sandra, thanks for your feedback. Also that it was super insightful. Sorry, there was a typo there. I think it was the promotion. Britta just reminded, the promotions for the members who wants to take the coaching is until the end of the month, not the 14th February. So there's a typo there. Yeah. Isabel, thank you. Great learnings about neuroscience. Anyone who feels to unmute? I'm going to stop the